Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the last DigiForum panel for DigiFest South 2014. This is a panel discussing STEAM education, the past, the present, and the future. We have a very distinguished coterie of guests on the stage here, which I'm going to introduce. All of them are professionals and or directly involved in STEM/STEAM education, and we're going to have hopefully a very fruitful and lively discussion about what STEAM education means and what it will mean for the future of Shreveport, Bossier, Northwest Louisiana. Starting here to my immediate left is Miss Renee Pullen. Renee Pullen has been an educator in Caddo Parish for 15 years. She has taught at the Riverside Elementary School and Herndon Magnet School. Ms. Pullen also has had the wonderful opportunity to teach undergraduate and graduate students as an adjunct professor at Louisiana Tech University and Louisiana State University here in Shreveport. She currently serves as a member of the Teachers Advisory Council for the National Academy of Sciences. Ms. Pullen has received numerous awards, including the Walmart Local Teacher of the Year Award in 2007, Caddo Parish Teacher of the Year in 2006, several grants, a Fund for Teachers Fellowship to study in Barcelona, Spain in 2014, and the Presidential Award for Math and Science Teaching. That is Miss Renee Pullen. Next, sitting to her left, is Mr. Micah Stewart. Micah Stewart is a STEAM educator at the R.W. Norton Art Gallery. Micah Stewart began his career in a STEM field by enlisting in the United States Army as a network communications specialist. After 5 years of the military, he earned a bachelor's in secondary science education from LSU Shreveport. Following that, he was a 6th through 8th grade science and robotics teacher at Ridgewood Middle School. He did that for 6 years, and then he is now currently employed as a STEAM educator at the Norton Art Gallery, focusing on integrating the arts into the STEM curriculum there, and that is Mr. Micah Stewart. On the other table, to our left, we have Dr. Heather Kleiner. She's a biomedical scientist and Sci-Port education programs manager, the Sci-Port facility here in Shreveport. Dr. Kleiner earned her bachelor's in biology and PhD in pharmacology and toxicology at UT Austin, Hook 'em Horns. After doing a postdoctoral fellowship at UTMD Anderson Cancer Center, she became faculty at LSU Health Sciences Center in Shreveport, where she conducted extramurally funded cancer research, taught medical and graduate school, and directed 2 hands-on science educational programs for undergraduates and high school students. That is Dr. Heather Kleiner. Byrus Burns is a Bossier Parish Community College engineering student. Byrus graduated from Spring Hill High School in Spring Hill, Louisiana. He is currently attending Bossier Parish Community College and will graduate with an associate's degree in engineering in December of 2014, after which he plans to transfer to Louisiana Tech to major in electrical engineering and electrical engineering technology. So very happy to have Mr. Byrus Burns with us. And last but certainly not least, Dr. Katie A. Evans. She's the interim director of math and statistics and industrial engineering at Louisiana Tech. Dr. Evans is the Walter Koss Associate Professor of Math and Statistics and the Director of the Integrated STEM Education Research Center and Director of the Louisiana Tech Grand Challenge Scholars Program. She earned her PhD in mathematics at Virginia Tech, go Hokies, and then spent 2 years as a postdoc in mechanical engineering at Oregon State University, go Ducks, before coming to Louisiana Tech in the fall of 2005, go Bulldogs. Her current research focuses on mathematical modeling of physical systems, namely unmanned micro-aerial vehicles and biological and biomedical engineering processes. She's also interested in K through 12 STEM and STEAM outreach and undergraduate STEM and STEAM education, especially from an interdisciplinary approach. That is Dr. Katie Evans. As you can see, there is no lack for credentials and experience on this stage, which is always wonderful to have the opportunity to gather people people who know their business and know their portfolio, know their brief as extensively and as thoroughly as everybody on this panel does. To Ms. Pullen, over the years during your teaching career, to get us started, how has STEM and or STEAM education changed and evolved at the elementary level?
Well, the biggest change is the intense focus and importance of STEM education in the primary grades. And the inclusion of engineering is a huge difference in the typical elementary school classroom. It's not something that's previously been done traditionally and historically in our class. We've done different engineering techniques and attempts, but really being explicit about that instruction in the classroom is something that is vastly different. But along with that is including more discussion about the nature of science, how we learn and understand the world around us, and also talking about experimental design compared and contrasted to engineering design. Creativity and innovation in science and in STEM has also become a very important conversation in the primary classroom. Discussions about girls in STEM, and it's really amazing to see a professional on the panel who just happens to be a woman, but it's also amazing that we have opportunities to let our girls see that there are many opportunities for them to be in careers in STEM, and talking about STEM careers. So when we say, what do you want to be when you grow up, we give them lots of things they could look at, and so they can say something other than just a football player or a rock star. And so when we talk about the changes in elementary, it's just a more focused attempt at getting good quality science, engineering, math instruction, and technology into the classroom. Talking about what that looks like, giving them more opportunities to do something besides just playing with computers, and integrating literacy through all of that. And so these are the different things that are going on, and hopefully will continue to grow as we implement more in the state of Louisiana, the next generation science standards, and other initiatives as they come across, because the opportunities of jobs in STEM, it's changing all the time, and what these jobs, what they look like, they're not always going to be the same. And right now, the kids in our classroom, we're preparing them for jobs that don't exist yet. And so it's really exciting to have all these opportunities to give these kids great opportunities to learn.
Very good. No, that's a wonderful answer. And I want to kind of pose basically the same question to Micah Stewart. You transitioned from teaching to now being involved at the STEM initiatives at the Norton Gallery. But tell us a bit about your history of using and concentrating on STEM and STEAM in your classroom as an education professional.
Well, in the classroom, and especially in the middle school classroom, it is completely or vastly different than the elementary level, just because it's a little bit more concentrated on individual subject areas of life science or physical science versus earth science. But the STEM initiative that's been pushed through the school, it's kind of still what is STEM? What exactly makes what I'm doing teaching STEM? How does my curriculum differ and makes it a STEM curriculum versus anybody else that's somewhere else that's just teaching just regular math class or science class? I do think that there are there are certain challenges that have come up trying to understand and trying to educate the teachers and the students on what a STEM career is and what actually is the benefit for us trying to teach STEM in the classroom, trying to get them to understand that all STEM is just cross-curricular, looking at it in terms of that science and math and engineering technology, they're all kind of interconnected and they're all kind of related to each other. And that's about it.
I've been slightly remiss before we go any further. Micah, can you please explain what that acronym STEM stands for, just for the record?
I will. STEM actually stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. Right now, there's a new push to kind of integrate the arts into the science, technology, engineering, and math. And the main reason why we're trying to push the arts is because science and math are typically very straightforward. They're linear. You have step-by-step procedures to get from point A to point B. I've always been of the mindset to encourage creativity, thinking outside of the box, innovation, tinkering with things, letting kids and students try to use their whole brain and not just the left brain, the logical side, to try to create new ideas, to create new objects, to try to approach problems from a different perspective besides somebody constantly saying you need to do step A, step B to get to your final location. And so the big push and it's the reason why I'm part of the art gallery is to try to encourage an arts integration, try to have teachers understand that and not just teachers, but the staff and anyone else to understand that the arts is integrated into science and technology, engineering, and math, just by allowing the creativity, playing with Legos, playing with linking logs, trying to give them an outlet to create, which then in turn allows them to, it allows us to kind of allow them to invent new ideas.
Sure. Absolutely. To you, Dr. Kleiner, you spent time as a researcher at LSU Health Science Center here in Shreveport. Give us some examples or some expression of the importance of STEM education as it relates to what is it that researchers do, particularly your experience at LSU.
Well, thank you for asking. In the biomedical sciences, we want to be all-inclusive in terms of the people who are entering our training programs and in the workforce. We want a diversity. Along with the diversity of the students, we want a diversity in the faculty and the mentorship. I've actually mentored students since I was a student, practically. So at the University of Texas and at MD Anderson, I always took a student or two or three under my wings and modeled some of the programs that we developed at LSU Health Sciences Center. Some of the things we did there, one was through the Society of Toxicology. We have a K-12 initiative. I'm the K-12 liaison for our regional chapter. Okay. We have a committee for diversity initiatives that I served on for many, many years, and that would bring high school students and undergraduate students to national scientific conferences from underrepresented groups and allow them to see what a real scientific conference is like. And then we also had teacher workshops where we did case studies on what is a poison, what is toxicology. But then we also had internship programs. So we created the summer undergraduate pharmacology experience in research. That's super, and that was initially funded by local resources, and then we received national funding from the Association for Pharmacology and Experimental Therapeutics. That brought in 5 undergraduate students every year that we could train one-on-one in the laboratory for 10 weeks, 40 hours a week, with their own scientific project. And then those students would go on to typically a regional or national meeting and present their research. Many of those students came back to us as graduate students, or they went to another institution for graduate school or for a teaching career in science. The other thing that we did at LSU Health Sciences Center in conjunction actually with Sci-Port and with the Biomedical Research Foundation was the BioStart program, which is still going on, and that is through the biotech program at Southwood High School, where we were giving high school students an internship in the laboratory under the guidance of a faculty mentor in their laboratories doing cancer research, research on diseases like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's. And to me, the one-on-one connection with the students is the most important, and to show them that, hey, if I can do it, you can do it.
Outstanding. No, I really appreciate the depth of that answer. Mr. Burns, if I'm not mistaken, you are likely the person on this panel that has had the most recent experience with K through 12 education. I'm just guessing. I don't mean to offend anyone. That's going to be my guess. To that point, tell us about and share with us some of your experience in science, technology, mathematics during your K through 12 career as a student that helped shape your decision to pursue that as a career and to go to post-secondary school to study those subjects.
Well, growing up, I was one of those kids who played with computers and Lincoln Logs or whatever you want to call them, but
yeah.
And I from there I did develop a love for mathematics, science, and it pretty much just stemmed from that. And I had teachers who would push me. My algebra teachers, they would try to help me do applications to get into college, and I pretty much went from there. And I guess that's pretty much it.
Is there anything that you would have liked to had more of as far as influence or educational focus in middle school or high school that you kind of wish that kids coming up after you could have?
Yes, sir. In my high school, we didn't have many AP classes that they have now, and there wasn't much of a STEM program that we could be put into. I wish I could have had that experience. I would be a lot better off right now.
No, understood. No, I appreciate that answer. Dr. Evans, next question for you. First of all, I owe you an apology. I think I said go Ducks, didn't I?
You did.
I did.
Yes, you did.
My
Go Beavs.
humble and sincere apologies. I realized that and immediately had almost a heart attack when I did it. But I wanted to personally apologize to you for that. Go Beavers. I know that is one of that Civil War is one of the best in the country. That's like Michigan, Ohio State, or LSU Auburn. So we have appreciation for that down here. But a question to you: you must have seen some changes in the preparedness of students with respect to their knowledge, just general knowledge, grade level knowledge of math and science, technology, and just the fundamental building blocks of engineering. Have you seen at least recently an increase in the level of preparedness, or just a fundamental shift in what it is that students seem to be prepared with when it comes to those subjects?
Absolutely. I've observed changes since I first started teaching as a graduate student.
Sure.
In fact, there was just a press release this week from Louisiana Tech indicating our increased freshman enrollment up by about 20%, and the highest average ACT of a freshman class that we've ever had at Louisiana Tech.
Wow.
We are absolutely seeing an increase in the preparedness of our students. Having taught the freshman math sequence as well as the freshman engineering sequence, I can see both sides of what our students are coming in when they major in the STEM disciplines. And they're coming in with enthusiasm and excitement, that can-do spirit where they want to get in and tinker and tear things apart and put it back together, which that's hard to teach in a traditional classroom. So it's great when they come in with that excitement. So I know that they are getting inspired at the K through 12 level and coming in with drive and passion and ready to learn. That said, there's also a difference in the personalities that I think affects them in the classrooms. So with technological advancements, they're more tech savvy at a lot of things than I am, but they're also used to having instant information. So sometimes they don't want to persist as much as we want them to, because we want them to fail. Not fail a class, but take something apart and fail at putting it back together the first time. So try again and keep persisting and chasing after it. And I've noticed, and I've had conversations with colleagues in recent years, students they want the immediate answer, but then they aren't used to struggling as much. maybe because we're attracting a very incredibly talented group of students, that things maybe came a little natural to them in high school. So we want them to keep pushing forward. But we are definitely seeing a very well-prepared group of students at the college level these days.
Is there anything you would like to see with respect to what your incoming freshmen get during their sophomore, junior, senior years of high school to better prepare them for when they reach your classroom?
I would say it would be great to see our students continuing to be challenged. I know that they're being challenged in
Sure.
high school, but let them struggle through on open-ended problems and multi-step kinds of problems even more than they already are. They are coming in very technologically prepared. Sometimes they might even be a little too dependent on technology. I can use examples like graphing calculators, Wolfram Alpha. They think, oh, I'm going to go to that and I'm going to get the answer. But we're not teaching them how to get the answer. We're teaching them to be problem solvers and thinkers. So we're happy if they come in with just a solid college algebra knowledge level into the math classes. We'll handle teaching on the rest of the stuff. So sometimes there might be a little bit too much dependence on technology.
Understood. No, absolutely. We appreciate those answers. Dr. Kleiner, a question for you. Women historically have been underrepresented in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. At least that is the story that most of us are waking up to. What is it that you think should be done, and what perhaps are you involved in now that will increase the representation of women and increase some gender equity in those career fields?
Very good point. And just an example of women and their representation in sciences, I would like to talk about a Nobel laureate, Gertrude Elion.
Sure.
She invented 5-fluorouracil and some of the other chemotherapeutic drugs back in the 50s. She shared the Nobel Prize. She got a master's degree, never got a PhD, never got married, never had children, pretty much followed her colleague through his career. It's different these days. A woman can get her own PhD, go up the ranks in faculty, and be a good role model for other students. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's not easy for men either. And we're not completely there yet. But the women are banding together and forming groups, women in toxicology, women in cancer research, women in science and health, many different subgroups. Sci-Port's involved with the National Girls Collaborative. We do things to interest the girls. I'm very keenly aware when I'm working with our visitors and our children on the floor at Sci-Port as to what the girls are doing, what are they interested in, what are the boys doing. We don't want to stereotype things. We want everybody to come in and enjoy and just help spark that curiosity. I would like to mention also that a lot of the women that are in these science groups, a lot of men are in these groups too. Dr. Coffey from American Association for Cancer Research is a very firm supporter of women in cancer research. And it helps bring about the awareness to everybody in science, technology, engineering, arts, and math as to the role that women can contribute and men, especially in collaborating. So we want to be very inclusive from the get-go when they're little kids.
Mm-hmm. Very good. To that point, let me toss in a question here to Micah and Renee. Before they even get to the post-secondary level, what initiatives might have you been involved with, or what would you like to see more at the K through 12 level to help promote more young girls developing interest in STEM fields as potential career, as potential course of study? Tell us about your experience with that at that level.
Well, I have not seen, let me put it to, I've taken plenty of field trips with my students to Sci-Port, and usually the way that we do it, it's based on grades for those that are interested in the science or the math fields. And surprisingly enough, the last time I took them, a group of students of 8th graders to Sci-Port, every single one of them except for 2 out of 40 was a female. And I'm not sure what happens as far as their interest levels, but in middle school, they surpass the males in at least scoring on their knowledge or the baseline knowledge in both math and in science. From what happens from middle school up into high school, it might be a different story. I also know that I've also seen kind of a shift from the tech side, because I'm a very techie type person and had worked with a bunch of them, and almost had to encourage a lot more females to want to get involved with working with computers, working with video game programming, that type of thing, working with the robotics. At our school, we had always had the mentality, or at least I have, that there has to be at least some type of interest levels for females. Teaching in a life science position, I know that I always had the girls always freak out whenever I did the cutting open of the frog and didn't want to touch it. And then 2 seconds later, they're the ones with their hands in there. And the boys are freaking out because they just wanted, because, oh, there's a frog. And then it somehow shifts really quickly. Trying to keep it in the back of the mind of things that interest the girls at different age levels. And some odd reason where I think it's almost like peer pressure to where some females and or males want to conform and stay away from certain areas that are predominantly a male field.
Sure.
And we're trying to work with Sci-Port and other organizations to try to increase female inactivity, trying to increase their interest levels, to at least show them, hey, it's not just boys, and it's not just men that are in this field. Y'all are, no offense, I'll say this honestly, probably smarter than most guys.
It's true.
It's true. In most areas. So, trying to
touching that one.
Yeah, trying to concede the point and let them, run with it. The creativity part of it, and just have at it is it's a hard thing to do.
And I agree with Micah. Kids are just they are innately curious, and they have
Right.
a lot of curiosity. Girls, I have found in elementary, they love science and math and all that other stuff just as much as the boys do. But I think a lot of times the problem isn't them. Sometimes it's us old folks, putting baby in a corner. And I don't know if you know this, but we all learned from, Dirty Dancing, nobody puts baby in a corner. And what we need to start doing is stop telling girls what they do and don't like and what they can and can't do. And because at some point, Mike and I have had this conversation before, it wanes. Because it's there. And maybe it has something to do with gender roles. Maybe it has something about putting them in the corner. But what we need to do is encourage our girls. There's a lot of opportunities out there, after school things, programs for young girls to get active in STEM, and also mentorship, as we talked about,
Sure.
and providing them with opportunities to see women in STEM careers. And one of the things that I've always done with my students at the beginning of the year is I ask them to draw a scientist. And you get the typical old dude, white hair, in a lab coat. End of the year, draw a scientist or an engineer. And the thing that gets to me is they start drawing themselves. Or they draw a woman in a cute lab, okay, all the bottom meaning, but they draw something other. And this is what's cool is my boys do too. They might have 3 people and there's a girl in the mix. And so what it is we need to be explicit. Talk about the role of women in science, along with science in general. And, don't make a big deal out of it, and let's stop limiting our ladies. Let's show them that it's amazing. It's not hard to be amazing, and we do it every day. And so there's other opportunities for women in science, and so we just need to talk about that.
Dr. Evans, talk to that point that Ms. Pullen just raised about mentorship. It's been proven that when young girls have an example of other women in the sciences to model, that they are more likely to choose a STEM career or STEM career themselves. Did you have a mentor in your past as a student that kind of helped you solidify that decision?
I did. It wasn't until I got to graduate school that I realized I probably wasn't supposed to be in STEM. As an undergrad, I just kind of fell into the mix. There were, I was predominantly in classes with males, but there were, a few other females, and I was good friends with the guys, and I didn't know I wasn't supposed to be there necessarily until I got to graduate school and I experienced some discrimination, and I observed older faculty members, men interacting with, maybe like the one female in the department, and saw her trying to break into that old white guys club, and saw the challenge there, and then also experienced things in the classroom myself, and I started realizing, oh wait, there aren't that many women, and most of them are not sticking around past the master's degree. And I don't know if it was luck or divine intervention or exactly what it was, but I ended up being advised by a female professor. She was just randomly assigned to me as my academic advisor, and really helped me, no more than she was helping anybody else, but she was a female, and I could talk with her, and I could see parts of her past that were similar to my own. And when I started looking for a research advisor, I asked her, how do I go about doing this? And she says, well, finding a research advisor is kind of like dating. You need to go talk to some people and see if it's a good match on both sides. You have to be able to get along in addition to wanting to do the research. Right. And I did that, and I found I didn't necessarily mesh with anybody else other than her. So I came back and I said, well, I really like your research and we get along. Will you be my research advisor? So I ended up, writing my dissertation with her, and we've, are still good friends, and we serve on committees together. And I didn't exactly know that she was serving as my mentor at the time, but she did, and was definitely a source of inspiration and helping me chart my course. It's critical that females see role models, especially once they get to the university level, and the level of competition takes it up a notch. Same for underrepresented minority groups, different ethnicities and races. It's critically important for them to see folks that look like themselves. I have mentors now. Some of them are, white females like me, and some of them aren't. They don't look exactly like me, but I have mentors for different aspects of my career, and I go to them when I need advice.
Outstanding. I want to open, I think I just want to open that same question to everybody else in the panel. Starting with you, Mr. Burns. You mentioned you had a couple of teachers that really helped shape your path into STEM as an educational pursuit and hopefully a career. Describe a relationship or an example of a mentor relationship that you were fortunate enough to have that really helped you steer some of your decision making to make the decision that this is what you wanted to study and this is what you wanted to become.
Yes, sir. Believe it or not, most of those people were actually female who actually pushed me to come in this direction. I think I've only had like one male math teacher, and that was geometry.
So women have been as at least as much of an influence on you as I'm sure they've been on anybody else in this panel. Then.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's always good to hear. Particularly considering as we found out how smart they are, right? Right. Dr. Kleiner, please tell us about your experiences with the mentors that help shape your path.
Well, two of the most important mentors are Dr. Serene S. Lau, my PhD mentor, and John DiGiovanni, my postdoctoral mentor at MD Anderson. Dr. Lau took me in as her graduate student, and I agree, it is a relationship with your mentor. She was a very firm woman who didn't stand up for any nonsense whatsoever. And walking down the hall, you could hear her high heels go clop, 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 and it would strike icy fear in anybody. Not that we were ever doing anything wrong, but she would come in and ask how your data is going. And I learned from her that you start rattling off everything that you're doing like that. Never say problem. Don't ever say the word problem. But she would sit in the hallway with me and go through mathematical equations for figuring out all of our enzyme kinetics, and working with me hands-on in the laboratory, one-on-one. And I took that as my own model of mentorship. I've mentored 61 students one-on-one in the laboratory. And I got it from her. As she progressed up the ladder in her career, she wasn't able to do that for every student. I was her third student. She had 2 children while I worked with her. And she showed me that you can continue to serve on committees, go to meetings, do your research. You have to get creative. You have to depend on the help from others. You have to delegate, and you have to be efficient. John DiGiovanni taught me a lot of the skills I needed as I progressed up the postdoctoral chain, because he was not as hands-on. He was the director of the center, very, very busy, but the mentorship was very key when I would meet with him. I just had to make an appointment to see him. He gave me a lot of career advice, how to negotiate, how to interview, how to write a grant. And you don't lose your contact with your mentors. You know, you still talk to them. And I've mentored, a PhD student, some master's students, and it's a wonderful relationship.
Micah?
What was the question again? Sorry. I got engrossed into what you were saying.
The question was, just how much smarter are women than we are? That's the question. The question is giving us some examples of some of the mental relationships that help shape your decision to become a STEM science educator.
Well, every single one of my teachers has been a female, all the way up through elementary school, and I can state this being a teacher now, is that I am just surprised in elementary school when you walk in that I actually look for the men in elementary school to see if there are any guys. And generally speaking, you might find one that's a PE teacher or a social studies teacher, but it's the females that are playing the role of the math teacher, the science teacher, the English teachers and such in elementary. As you start progressing up the chain, though, you start seeing that there's a little bit more filtration of kind of guys coming in. So all I was thinking is while we were talking is, where does it switch completely from it being in college to the postdoctoral and those fields being male dominated to where it's the females that are teaching us all of our information that we have to have, the core knowledge that we have in elementary all the way up. I was racking my brain trying to think of how many male teachers, and all I could think of was my PE teacher in high school and my social studies teacher in middle school. And that would be about it. As far as having mentors, even the best teachers that I had in college, Dr. Burden, who was a biologist at LSUS, was it's those are the ones that I gravitated toward, and those are the ones that kind of you remember. They take you under your wing. They tell you kind of point blankly, do this, don't do that, kind of give you that information. And those are the ones that stick with you. And I agree that once you make that connection with your mentor or somebody that you look up to and respect, then they'll always be there, that you want to look up to and try to achieve what they were able to achieve in their lifetime. Renee?
Ms. Wong? Yes, please.
The person who I looked up to the most, as of course I had amazing teachers throughout who got me interested in science, but Dr. Linda Easley, when I was at NSU, she was Dr. Linda Roach. And I'm not going to lie and say I loved her from the beginning, because she was hard and tough, so I hated her, of course. And but she taught in a way that I hadn't had a whole lot of experience with on a collegiate level. But she was also my methods teacher. I had her for one of my science courses, and then she was the methods teacher, and she was so important, and to me, falling in love with science, but for primary students. And for a lot of times, you see a huge push for science education in middle school and high school, but I just really had fun figuring out ways to get this content across to the little ones. And she stayed with me and helped me through the rest of the program. When I started teaching, I knew I could email her. She eventually left NSU, came to LSUS in Shreveport. We remained in contact. When I started my graduate program, she was teaching a few of the classes. And even when she left and moved to Tennessee, I took her place, which was, well, I didn't take her place. I just taught what she taught because I can't take her place. But that was probably one of the highlights of my career. But that, and another thing that really I think is a great opportunity is professional development. And I think for many of us as educators and us having women being in the forefront to help students learn, having professional development and learning the importance of getting these ideas into the classroom. How do we get girls more engaged and keep them engaged? How do we get our students, our diverse students, more engaged? And what opportunities should we give them to make it fun and exciting and keep them creative so they can fail, which is the first attempt in learning. It's not necessarily always a bad thing. And so having that mentor, growing professionally, I believe are the two best things that I've had in my career.
Outstanding. No, it's clear that having a mentor relationship has been absolutely crucial to all of you, and so it's also wonderful to know that that's something you would continue to encourage out of the people around you and the students that are in your charge today. Here's a general question. I would like to get at least a bit of expository from everybody on the panel. There seems to be a lot of really good stuff in STEM and STEAM happening in Northwest Louisiana at all levels, the elementary school level, middle school, and of course high school. There are great institutions of higher learning in this region. You have Sci-Port, you have the Biomedical Research Foundation, the Cyber Innovation Center here in Bossier City, Louisiana. There are plenty of opportunities to actually have a career in STEM here for people who don't necessarily have any desire to leave the area. You can go to school here and have a great career in your chosen field here. What more, or if you just have any general thoughts, what more would you like to see with respect to how we're preparing students in Shreveport, Bossier, and Caddo and Bossier parishes in Northwest Louisiana generally to not only pursue an education in college and beyond, but also be prepared to enter the workforce in a STEM field, particularly when it looks as if there's going to be a huge demand for that regionally? What more would you like to see? What advice would you give the powers that be to help better prepare young people?
Support STEM education through grants, funding opportunities, and keeping that importance in the classroom, not taking that time away from K-12 and education, knowing that it's very important. And I know, like in high school, the only thing that's tested for the EOC is biology. But just because that's the only thing that's tested, that doesn't mean that is the only content that has value.
Sure.
And so what it's really important is showing that we're going to grow, making STEM as one component of integrating all those together, that has value, that we are going to support that through funds so we can do things like have robotics programs and kids can participate in competitions and go places and interact with other kids around the country, giving primary education funds so that we can have opportunities in our classroom to have wonderful learning experiences. buying the literature that's available for the students to read so they can read biographies on people with careers or seeing people with careers and continuing that drive from the beginning to the end. There's a partnership I know growing with Bossier Parish Community College, and I believe they just received a big grant to encourage growth and STEM careers so that when students leave Bossier, they are career ready in a STEM career. And so that's the thing I would like to see more. We have a lot of job opportunities that involve STEM in Louisiana. And so if we want to keep our students, we need to have them prepared so they can fill the job openings that are available.
Michael, please.
My thoughts are the biggest thing is to work from the ground up, of course, just like Renee had said. But part of that is making sure that the teachers that are teaching our students have adequate training, are as prepared with the adequate knowledge. So by the time they get to middle school, they have the basic foundations in which I can pull from. And when they get to high school and then up into the college, that they have that basic knowledge to where we can take them to the next step. I was looking at some statistics that the United States was 25th in math against the other industrialized nation and 17th in science, I believe, which is we're lacking, and that other countries are able to they're able to surpass us just because of I believe it's more like just lack of training for certain teachers in those in those specific fields.
You mentioned, well, I have 2 or 3 things that I'd like to mention. And first, we are very grateful for all the community support we get from our donors, our sponsors, the grant support that we get. We couldn't do it without community support. And so we will, always be needing community support. But the other thing is, you mentioned people can go to school here and then get a job here. And employers want to see a qualified workforce. And working with the Biomedical Research Foundation, they had a 25-year vision for an Intertech Science Park, of which now you've got Moonbot Studio and other agencies over there. And I would love to see that develop and flourish. What we need to keep in mind is that starting yesterday, growing our own workforce is really important, getting those students ready for these types of careers. So what I would like to see are internship opportunities for kids while they're still students, high school students and young college students, summer jobs, summer internships, some kind of work-study program, because they have that catch-22. You can't get a job unless you have experience. You can't get experience unless you get a job. How do you ever start? Maybe the internship would be the way to do it. The other thing is that Sci-Port is now a portal to the public network member, and that is sponsored by the National Science Foundation. And so what we are going to do is serve as a portal between scientists, loosely defined, in STEAM, and the public. So at Sci-Port, with informal science, we can engage the public, we can spark curiosity by doing anything that's hands-on with people that's science-related, and we will be able to teach the scientists how to create their own hands-on utilities to engage the public and provide them with a format at Sci-Port or other places to do it. And the more that STEM and STEAM is integrated into popular culture, into daily life, they're going to see it as something that's normal, every day, and they're not going to see it any different than a sports team.
Excellent point. Barbara, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to mention the same thing that Dr. Kleiner just stated about jobs and experience, because it's one of the problems I'm having now.
You're finding that it's, you can't have one without the other, but how do you get either?
Yeah.
Is that the quandary you're having? Mm-hmm. Would internship program, if not now, then certainly even for when you were in high school and for high schoolers coming up, is that something you think would have been valuable to you?
Oh, yes.
Oh, very good. So you're hearing it from somebody who's, like I said, the least furthest removed, espousing the value of what you just suggested, Dr. Kleiner. Dr. Evans, please.
I'm not sure that I can add new comments to what the panelists have already said. Internships are incredibly important. We're certainly pushing our especially our engineering students to do that. It's harder to really get a handle on an internship for scientists. Sometimes research experience for undergrads in the summer, those are appropriate. Federal funding is tight right now. It's incredibly tight. You need to be sending out about 3 times as many grant applications to hit. So it's a tough time economically with getting federal funding to support these kinds of education programs that we want to have. I've heard interdisciplinary curriculum mentioned, and tying those things together so that students see how everything is woven together, and it'll spark interest. Training teachers, support, consistent support at all these levels is critical for us to continue to have the pipeline we need, and also to build the support and the programs we need to help retain our quality students,
right,
and help them find the right path once they get to the university level.
Absolutely. No, excellent points all. We want to open the floor now to anybody in the audience that may have a question for any or all members of our esteemed panel. Is there anybody who'd like to ask a couple of things? Please.
With the overlap of the different subjects, is it important is that something that happens in one classroom or with collaboration among the teachers?
It has to be a collaboration amongst the teachers. You can't have a curriculum where they're disjointed. Otherwise, we go back to what Dr. Evans said, is that the students lose interest, or they don't see how they need to study the English language arts and know how to write to be a scientist, where, as we know, grants are a big portion of where those fundings come from. And if you can't write correctly, or you can't express yourself in a correct manner, then you're not going to get that funding, which means that you're not going to have a job. So having the teachers communicate and have time, which is the biggest problem in a teacher's life, is to give them time to be able to plan, be able to communicate together to form a cross-curricular.
I was going to say, to go to the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's a very good question, and that's a question that we have as educators, is what's the STEM look like? Because we know it's important. We know that the call, it came because we're graduating students who aren't necessarily prepared to enter these careers. And so that is going to be something that, as the years go by, and we talked about, past, present, and future, that's going to be an interesting discussion, because in different places around the country, there are schools that are completely designing and changing their curriculum to complement a STEM initiative. And so there are sometimes classes popping up where they are completely STEM related. There is a class at Cherokee Park, 6th grade, and a class at Uri Drive, and they are completely STEM classes. And I know there's a STEM lab at Summer Grove. And so the honest answer too is it's changing, and I'm not sure if we can give a strong set answer, because what that looks like is a part of the discussion we're having now as we implement more STEM components into the everyday classroom. And hopefully we'll have maybe a class that will make sense. But right now, Mike is right. It's a little disjointed with the current curriculum that we have, but that is something with the next generation science standards and the expectations of what we want for our students as they grow and graduate. It's going to continue to grow and change, which is a little scary because, change is hard, but that's what we're going to have to do to make sure that we get our students ready to be productive citizens.
Any other questions?
Sorry,
Sure.
a little bit on past experience with myself. I was just curious to know if maybe this was just only for my friend group or if this maybe applied to women in general. I know that the entire time that I was a chemistry major, when I would talk to my friends about it, it was huge. I'd look and they'd go, oh my God, that's so hard. And they would just freak out and they thought that was just so impossible and so difficult. Why would you do that? And I'm just curious to know, do you think that that idea of I can't do it, that mindset of, well, that's too hard. I can do history, I can do English, I can do the lib arts, I can do the business, but I can't do that science. Is that something that you see kind of across the spectrum in the collegiate setting?
I would say that a lot of people when I was in college would avoid some of the, quote, hard sciences for that reason, but I really couldn't speak for everybody else. Now today at our hands-on activities at Sci-Port, we had a visitor who said, I would love to do robotics, but I'm no good at math. And I thought, and I told him, I said, well, you know, maybe when you're doing those applications for the robotics, and you're using the specific math that you need, you'll get better at it because you know what you're using it for. And so perhaps the best answer for people who think it's too hard is to think about it being interdisciplinary. And just give them encouragement. Give them something smaller to work on and work on little chunks a bit at a time and say, oh, I could do that. Let's try this one and that one, and then they can work their way up.
When I was an adjunct for science methods at LSUS, I would see a lot of, and it wasn't just my female students, it would be my male students as well saying, I can't. And a lot of times we tell children that, you know, you can't because I couldn't, you know. And so taking that belief that you can't do something away. And then when we got into activities and we started saying things like, okay, you might not know this, that's okay. You learn it and you start working with it and you will know. And so a lot of times they feel like it's hard because they might not have had a lot of experience with it, and or they didn't have a positive experience with it. And so the things that we could do as educators is just give students opportunities where they know that it's okay not to always be right, and it's okay if whatever you're doing fails, but it's also okay if somebody's really into that, and that is something that you can do. And I think it's just one of those things that we all in general have this, what's the word I want to use? It's a stigma we have against science and math. And hopefully with STEM that will change. And I think that's one of the big reasons why we want this initiative, is to change that stigma of science and math and to show that that is something that our students can do and that we can get them in the careers, so that we graduate students who are no longer afraid to do those jobs and to learn that content. And so, yes, you are absolutely right. That's one of the problems, and this is our initiative. This is what we as educators have decided that we're going to try to do to combat that problem.
And I have to say, just standing on the standpoint that it's not just females that run into that. Being back in college, I do remember that I had to take classes with elementary school teachers, and as I mentioned, most of the teachers are female. When we took the science method courses that I would have to take, they would freak out and go, I don't know how to do any of this. It was, it literally was kind of basic rocket science, Newton's first law of motion, second law, that kind of stuff, trying to figuring out what's going on in space and how this stuff would move. However, before we even walk into the classroom, those individual teachers would sit there and say, I just don't know how to do this because this is science. And the reason why I laughed when Dr. Kleiner had said about a person coming in there and said, I would love to do robotics, but I'm no good at math, I found funny because I'm not good at math either. However, what we play with the robots, we've almost, with technology nowadays, it's almost simplified it to the point where you don't have to be good at a lot of these things in order to learn them. you, like Renee had said, you learn them as you start doing them. It's just the getting out of that comfort zone, pushing yourself to start playing with it. And like I tell my students, the only way you get better at something is just you start doing it. You just start playing with it. You don't become an expert at video games when you pick up the remote. You just start playing with it, and you die a few times, and you come back to life. It's the same thing in a classroom. It's just that I think a lot of people immediately go into the little hiding hole and want to say, I just can't do it. And so they just don't try. And without giving any effort or any trying, it just progresses, and then they go, well, I can't do it, when they just never have attempted.
Excellent answers. I'd like to thank you all for your participation in this panel. Once again, thank you to Renee Pullen, Micah Stewart, Dr. Heather Kleiner, Virus Burns, and Dr. Katie Evans. We appreciate you taking the time to give us this wonderful information about STEM and STEAM education in Northwest Louisiana. And again, from DigiFest South 2014, we thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.